In this video, we'll talk about partial fraction decomposition. So I have a couple examples for us to work through here. We have 12 over x squared minus 9. So how can we decompose this fraction into smaller fractions? And basically what we're asking ourselves is what fractions were added together to get this as the resulting fraction? So the way that we can do that is we can factor the denominator. So x squared minus 9, that can be factored into x plus 3 and x minus 3. So what we can do is we can rewrite this as 12 over x plus 3 and x minus 3 is equal to some fraction with a value of, we'll call it constant a, over the first factor of x plus 3 plus another fraction where the denominator will be this second factor of x minus 3. So we just want to figure out what are the values for a and b now. So the way that we can do that is we can multiply this entire expression by the common denominator of x plus 3 and x minus 3. And when we do that, we can see that on this left-hand side, we'll be left with 12. And on this right-hand side, when we multiply a over x plus 3 with x plus 3 and x minus 3, these x plus 3's will cancel out and we'll be left with a times x minus 3. And similarly, when we multiply b over x minus 3 with this common denominator, the x minus 3's will cancel out, and we'll be left with b times x plus 3. So we've simplified the expression a bit by getting rid of all of the denominators. So now we just need to figure out what are the values of a and b. So to do that, the trick that we can use is we can pick a value for x to cancel out either this whole a expression or this whole b expression. So for example, if we chose x is equal to 3, notice that this whole expression would be 3 minus 3, which is 0. So we would be left with 12 is equal to b times x plus 3. So if x is 3, this is 3 plus 3, which is 6. So we have 6 times b. And now to solve for b, we can see that we just need to divide both sides by 6. So b is equal to 12 divided by 6 is 2. So b is 2. And we can do the same thing to solve for a. So if we instead chose x to be negative 3, we can see that this whole expression would become 0. And we would have 12 is equal to a times negative 3 minus 3, that's negative 6. So a times negative 6. So to solve for a, we could divide both sides by negative 6, and we would get a is equal to negative 2. So we solve for a and we solve for b, so we can write our final answer as negative 2 over x plus 3, plus we found that b was equal to 2, so 2 over x minus 3. And that is our final answer. That is how we can decompose this original fraction into two fractions. All right, let's try one more example. Let's say we have x plus 14 over x squared minus 2x minus 8. How can we decompose this fraction into two smaller fractions that were added together? Well, again, we can use the trick of factoring the denominator. So how can we factor this denominator? Well, we can ask ourselves what values multiply to negative 8 and add to negative 2. So that would be negative 4 and positive 2. So we can rewrite this as x minus 4 times x plus 2. So we can rewrite this as x plus 14 over x minus 4 times x plus 2. And we can set that equal to some fraction where we have a constant, where the denominator is this first factor, x minus 4, plus b, where the denominator is this second factor of x plus 2. So we need to solve for a and b. So we'll use the same trick as the previous example where we multiply this entire expression by the common denominator of x minus 4 and x plus 2. And when we do that, we'll see that this left-hand side, the denominator cancels out, we'll be left with x plus 14 is equal to, now when we multiply this a over x minus 4 by this common denominator, the x minus 4's will cancel out. We'll be left with a times x plus 2. And then we have, when we multiply b over x plus 2 by this common denominator, the x plus 2's will cancel out this time, and we'll be left with b times x minus 4. So we need to solve for a and b. So remember the trick. We can pick a value for x that will cancel out either a or b. So for example, we can see that if we chose x as negative 2, this whole expression would become 0. So we would be left with negative 2 for x, negative 2 plus 14 is 12, is equal to b times negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. So to solve for b, we can divide both sides by negative 6. And b will be 12 divided by negative 6 is negative 2. And we can do the same thing to solve for a. So if we imagine that we chose x is equal to 4, we can see that this whole expression would become 0. So we would get 4 plus 14, so that's 18, is equal to a times 4 plus 2, so that's 6. And to solve for a, we can divide both sides by 6, and a is equal to 18 divided by 6 is 3. So we have solved for a and we solved for b, so we can write our final answer as a over x minus 4, so we have 3 over x minus 4, plus b we found was a negative 2, so let's actually write a minus 2 over x plus 2. And that will be our final answer. So that's how we can decompose this original fraction into two smaller fractions.